evening and welcome to the Transform I-66 Inside the Beltway Public Information Meeting. My name is Renee Hamilton. I'm the Deputy District Administrator, and I just want to welcome you here. We're also live streaming tonight, so welcome to you in TV land or computer land as well. We just want to welcome you here. This is an opportunity for us to provide you just an overview of where we are with I-66 inside the Beltway. But before we do that, we have a couple of introductions. I know we have Vicki Hall, who's representing Delegate Hugo's office. And we also have our project team with us. We have Amanda Baxter, who's the project manager. Kelly Corner, who is representing the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And we have the other project team members with us as well. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, as I indicated, is just to provide you an overview of where we are with the I-66 Multimodal Improvement Project. First, let me start off by describing to you what the corridor is for this particular project. Sort of unique in the way we're approaching this project, and we're not really only looking at I-66 as a corridor, although that's highlighted in yellow. But if you see the shaded area that we have, that's also a part of the study area. So when you look at that, you're looking at the parallel routes that also we will be actually analyzing as a part of the overall package for the multimodal improvements for I-66. So let me just start with some context about this facility. I-66 is a very unique interstate, unlike any other in the country. It's the only interstate that is limited to HOV usage during the rush hour peak periods. The other unique feature of I-66 is, unlike the other interstates that end in or connect with another interstate or freeway, I-66 actually goes into the District of Columbia and therefore ends at Asafia. Some of the other issues regarding I-66 and things that we're dealing with is just looking at the middle picture that you have. You can see the deck over the Roslyn area, where you have high retaining walls and you have a restrained area where I know that some folks have been advocating for widening. But with restrictions like this, it basically makes widening very complicated all the way to the river and very costly as well. The other unique feature about the corridor, which we also include the metro in that corridor as well, is the crowding that we have on the Orange Line. We are blessed to have that facility that operates and carries as many people as you see on that platform. However, it does create its challenges because of the crowding that we experience. However, when you look at the corridor in its entirety, from the outside to inside, the outside doesn't enjoy as much transit services. So therefore, we do have another project, the Outside 66 project, that will address the transit needs there as well. So a couple of things, couple of key points that you should know about this project that would happen regardless of the I-66 improvements. Two critical major changes. And the first one is the Transportation Planning Board back in 2010 actually adopted as a part of its constrained long-range plan the conversion of HOV 2 to 3. Currently, the facility operates as an HOV 2 facility. In the constrained long-range plan, that conversion is scheduled, regardless of this project, to actually take effect in 2020. The other key component is the clean fuel vehicles. Under the requirement of an HOV facility, the facility actually, according to federal requirements, should operate at least 45 miles per hour. If it doesn't, then we call that a degraded facility because it's not operating with the intent by which the federal government had us to facilitate an HOV system. So therefore, back in the mid-90s, when this actually started, the hybrid vehicles, the clean fuel vehicles, was allowed to use the facility because we had access capacity. That has changed. Right now, the facility is degraded. It is breaking down. Many of you travel it, so you're very familiar with the conditions that we have. So therefore, this would have taken place where that exemption would go away. So how did we get here? Back in 2011, there was a study that we actually began that was called the I-66 Multimodal Study. And this study actually reviewed various components, multimodal solutions that will help move more people through I-66. Now, it basically it's a package of improvements, just not one type of solution was presented. We had solutions such as enhanced transit, enhanced bike and ped facilities. We had also roadway improvements, intersection improvements, and we had capacity improvements. We also had things that actually use technology to help move people through the corridor as well. That was considered as a part of this overall package. Now, the first study was completed in 2012, and then there was a supplemental that basically identified the most promising elements of the overall multimodal package. And this is basically how we started the overall project. So let's get into the project features. Now, as I indicated, the multimodal study actually looked at a wide range of solutions for I-66. But none of those solutions in and of itself actually would address this problem on 66. So many people will say, well, why not widen? Widening by itself would not address all of the issues on 66. So we truly took a multimodal approach in order to move more people, in order to have a more reliable trip along the corridor. So here's the features of the project that we are proposing or moving forward. And I want to basically give you a quick overview of that particular project. The first element is tolling. Actually looking at dynamic tolling similar to what we have on I-95 and 495. Where the prices would actually fluctuate based on the demand along the corridor. Another key and very important component of the project is the multimodal solutions. In working with Kelly and her staff and the local jurisdictions, we will actually implement multimodal solutions in conjunction with the tolling, with the first phase of that particular project. Again, widening is a part of the solution. Not in the first part of, not in the initial project. However, it is a part of the overall package of improvements that was advanced through the multimodal study. So what is the benefit of this project? The overall goal that we're trying to get at is moving more people. We understand that we cannot build our way out of congestion. So instead of just starting with the same approach, adding more capacity, there are many other multimodal solutions that will also help move more people through the corridor. Enhanced bus service, not only the bus service within that corridor with Arlington, Fairfax, and Falls Church, but also looking at bus service, enhanced bus service in Loudoun and Prince William as well. Trying to create that reliable trip that people expect for a roadway to have, so that if there's a need to make a baseball game or to make a parent-teacher conference, folks want that reliability in a corridor. The other key feature is the parallel routes. We've heard a lot of discussion regarding the impacts on the parallel routes, Route 29, Route 50, Route 7. How would this project impact those routes? The overall multimodal study also identified enhancements that would be done along those parallel routes as well. As you know, we've just completed the I-95 hot lanes as well as the 495. This actually will help to complete that 40-mile express lane facility throughout the region. And another key component for this is that with the tolling, we do have the opportunity for a revenue stream in order to fund the multimodal improvements. In order for these projects to almost be self-financing from this particular facility. Another key element is that this facility, unlike 495 and 95, will be owned and operated and implemented by the state. So therefore, the funds will be controlled by the state and will stay not just in this region, in the corridor, in order to benefit 66. So let me just walk you just quickly through a typical rush hour morning. What we have is basically, in this study, this was actually taken from our Transportation Planning Board study that was done in 2014, which basically shows where, and many of you are familiar with the corridor, so I don't have to really go into a lot of details, where you show congestion starting from the Dulles Connector, you're going east, going into Roslyn, Boston area, and then the congestion also at the bridge. Because of, and this is a blessing for us, the job growth that we have in this region, not only into DC and into Arlington, but also what we're experiencing now in Tyson and along the Dulles corridor, that's creating a reverse commute. So people are going in both directions. So what it's showing is that there's congestion in both directions. So where are these people coming from? You look at the star that's there. That's just east of the Dulles Connector Road. And as people are coming in to that star, you see that there's 58% of the folks that are coming from Fairfax. You also see 18% coming from Loudoun. So this just gives you an idea of where people are coming from. So where are they going? If you go through that star, you see that 38% of the folks are going into Arlington, 33% into DC and beyond, and then the others is mixed through Fairfax and Alexandria and Falls Church. Going in the reverse direction, which is equally important, which would match that red line that I just showed you in the chart before. So where are they coming from? You see a large portion, 59%, coming from Arlington, 21% from DC and points beyond, and then the others basically are made up by Fairfax, Falls Church, and Alexandria again. It's almost the reverse. So when they get past that point, where are they going? They're going to these job centers, either in the Dulles Corridor, because we have two arrows for Fairfax, Dulles Corridor, and also you have the Chantilly area as well as Springfield and Vienna and some of those areas, making up that 80%. And then others going to Loudoun and also Prince William and points beyond there. So the overall goal for this project is, one, to use transit in order to move more people, giving people choices. Right now, SOB users cannot use the facility. This provides a different choice for them. We are actually looking at trying to incentivize carpooling, van pooling, enhance transit, as I indicated before, not just within the core, but even extending beyond there, getting people out of their cars in Prince William County, getting people out of their cars in Loudoun. Also, the option to pay, looking at the parallel routes, making improvements there as well. And then right now, if you're ever on 66, and I've done this myself, sit on the shoulder and then wait for that HOV restriction to move. This provides more opportunity for you to adjust your time. You want to pay, or if you want to get in a carpool, it provides an opportunity for a facility to be more reliable. So with that, we have created a video that also goes into a little more depth about the project. And so after that, we're going to come back and get into some of the details regarding the traffic and revenue forecast.
Is a unique and challenging interstate corridor in Northern Virginia.
We're just trying to get the volume just right.
I-66 inside the Beltway is a unique and challenging interstate corridor in Northern Virginia. The corridor already offers commuters many travel choices for their trip, but often traffic congestion, routing, and unreliability impact these choices. The Commonwealth is advancing a project to move more people, enhance connectivity, improve travel reliability, and provide new travel options on I-66 from I-495, or the Capital Beltway, to U.S. Route 29 in Roslyn. Transform 66 inside the Beltway will convert all lanes into dynamically priced toll lanes during weekday rush hours between the Capital Beltway and Roslyn. Toll revenues will be reinvested into multimodal improvements that directly benefit the I-66 corridor. In the next few minutes, this video will provide a brief overview of existing conditions, background of the corridor, and key features of the project. Currently, only vehicles with 2 or more occupants, some clean fuel vehicles, and Dulles Airport users are permitted to travel eastbound along I-66 in the morning rush period, and westbound along I-66 in the evening rush period. Taking a snapshot of the I-66 corridor today, 2 lanes in each direction experience traffic congestion during morning and evening rush hours. During these rush hour periods, traffic congestion in the corridor affects the reliability of car and bus trips in both directions, and also contributes to congestion on parallel and intersecting routes. Metrorail's orange and silver lines, portions of which run along I-66, often carry crowded trains during peak periods as they travel through Arlington County. WMATA forecasts that the average peak period railcar will experience overcrowding between East Falls Church and the DC border by the year 2030. Bus service is prevalent in the I-66 corridor along parallel routes. It includes commuter-oriented services originating in Loudoun, Prince William, and Fairfax counties, as well as a variety of local bus service. Many of these routes are well used, and buses are impacted heavily by traffic conditions in the corridor. Trails such as the Custis and Washington and Old Dominion trails are also busy, and their increasing use by bicyclists and pedestrians is creating pressure to expand and enhance parallel bike and pedestrian networks. Increasing capacity of I-66 by adding lanes is difficult. Narrow right-of-way, infrastructure such as the Lynn Street Tunnel in Roslyn, and retaining walls constrain the corridor east of Ballston. In addition to these constraints, traffic heading east on I-66 terminates at a traffic signal that is part of a complicated city street grid and limits the volume of traffic entering Washington, D.C. Recognizing that these constraints exist, changes proposed for I-66 inside the Beltway were identified through many years of cooperative study and planning with all of the jurisdictions and public along the corridor. Much has changed since I-66 opened inside the Beltway as a rush hour HOV4+ facility in 1982. Rush hour occupancy requirements were reduced to HOV3+ in 1983 and again reduced to HOV2+ in 1995. In 1994, legislation passed which permitted vehicles with clean special fuel license plates to use HOV lanes without meeting minimum occupancy requirements. In response to rising congestion along the I-66 corridor during HOV restricted hours, vehicles with these license plates issued from 2011 on are no longer permitted to travel on I-66 during restricted hours, unless they meet occupancy requirements. Even with this change, travel reliability in the corridor continues to decline. Understanding the current conditions in the corridor, several important studies have been undertaken by the Commonwealth. In 2009, the I-66 Transportation Demand Management Study recommended a variety of service and infrastructure improvements. The 2012 Multimodal Study and the 2013 Supplemental Report looked at several alternatives for the corridor and developed a recommended package of improvements. The combination of these studies and their recommendations form the basis of the planned changes for Transform 66 inside the Beltway. Additionally, based on a decision by leaders of the Washington metropolitan area, by 2020, all vehicles will be required to have 3 or more passengers, HOV 3+, to travel in the lanes for free, and the clean special fuel vehicle exception will sunset, whether or not the Transform 66 project advances. In 2017, I-66 inside the Beltway will become a toll facility in both directions during weekday morning and evening rush hours. Outside of designated periods, the lanes will be free to all traffic, like they are today. Toll rates will vary to keep traffic moving at a reliable speed. At locations where drivers can enter the toll lanes, which include all of the current I-66 entries and exits, the price of the toll will be displayed. The toll operations are supported by overhead toll readers on I-66 in 4 locations. The lanes will be free to vehicles with 3 or more passengers, on-duty law enforcement and emergency vehicles, and buses. All other vehicles will be able to use the lanes by paying the toll. The inside the Beltway rush hour toll lanes will connect with the region's growing network of more than 40 miles of express lanes, including the 495 Beltway express lanes and those planned for I-66 outside the Beltway. Tolling during rush hours and changes to high occupancy vehicle requirements will help I-66 move more people reliably. Changes also will offer travelers new choices for their trip during rush hours. Single occupant vehicles, who today are not permitted to use I-66 inside the Beltway during rush hours, will be able to. Reliability and speed will improve for buses, carpools, and van pools. The lanes will be free to all traffic during non-rush hours, including on weekends. Heavy trucks will still be prohibited. Toll revenues will be reinvested in multimodal improvements that directly benefit the I-66 corridor. These improvements can include increased bus service, better access to metro rail stations, new bike and pedestrian access, and improvements on parallel roads. The Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, or NVTC, will manage the selection of multimodal improvements. Projects will be proposed by Northern Virginia jurisdictions and must benefit I-66 toll payers and help move more people through the corridor. The public will be invited to participate in the process through meetings and other outreach. The first group of improvements will be in place when tolling begins in 2017. It is expected that the multimodal program will support enhanced transit service, roadway improvements to improve traffic flow at choke points, education and incentive programs related to transportation choices, investments in major regional bikeways, and technologies to make the corridor work better. The effectiveness of improved management of the facility and the multimodal components on reducing congestion will be examined. If after 5 years congestion is not addressed during the peak hours, the Commonwealth will initiate a study to widen I-66 from the Dulles Toll Road to the Glebe Road Fairfax Drive exit. In addition to multimodal improvement selection, a number of other efforts are underway. These efforts include a toll and revenue study describing how much tolls will cost, a traffic study describing how the I-66 tolls would affect traffic in the corridor and on parallel roads, and a design effort for toll infrastructure and signage. The Commonwealth's Transform 66 Inside the Beltway project is an investment in regional multimodal mobility and travel reliability for Northern Virginia. The combination of tolling, vehicle occupancy requirements, targeted infrastructure investments, and strategic multimodal system enhancements will help the I-66 corridor carry more people reliably, improve transit, and offer new choices for traveling along I-66 inside the Beltway. For more information on this important multimodal transportation initiative in Northern Virginia, and to learn how to participate, please visit transform66.org.
So while we're transitioning, I would like to recognize Senator Morrison, who's just come in as well.
trying to get started with how the tolling is going to work, as well as some of the recent data that we're presenting at tonight's meeting. First, I wanted to say that tolling is the first step, as Renee indicated, to the overall package that we're implementing. It's the first step in our ability to manage the traffic that we experience today, and it will be a way that we can manage it for an indefinite amount of time in this corridor. When we turn this project online in 2017, the plan is that high occupancy vehicles would be HOV 3+. However, based on public feedback in the meetings that we had in June, we are also considering keeping it at HOV 2+ until the project outside the Beltway comes online. Single occupancy drivers will have the option to pay the toll and use the lanes during rush hour. Hybrids and Dulles Airport users who are currently exempt will also be subject to the toll. Motorcycles and emergency response vehicles will be exempt from the toll. When the tolling period, which is proposed to be 4 hours, is over, and during the afternoon and on the weekend, it will be free and remain free to the traveling public. And many of you know that inside the Beltway is currently prohibited to heavy trucks. That will remain in place as part of this project. However, by 2021, in accordance with our regional plan, we will be an HOV-free facility along this corridor, and they will ride this corridor for free. I just wanted to walk you through some of our studies we've done and talk about the overall speed variability that we currently experience in the corridor. You can see here from the chart in this blue range, here at 29, you can see speeds that we are experiencing as low as 25 miles an hour. And there's areas along the corridor, such as Sycamore, that could be as high as 65 miles an hour. That could be Monday through Friday, any day of the week. You might get on the facility. Maybe it's 25 miles that day. Maybe it's 65 miles that day. What this project will do through the management of lanes is provide predictability to the corridor by bringing a reliable 45-mile-an-hour predictable trip. Similar in the eastbound PM direction, and everyone is very familiar with the Dulles Connector Road ramp, there are speeds registered as low as 5 miles an hour, according to our study. And again, we also experience speeds at the same location at 60 miles an hour. This is actually an unrestricted movement currently in the corridor. We call that the reverse commute movement. And as the subject, as the job growth in Tyson's Corner continues, we would expect this condition to remain as such without the management of lanes. Similar to what I showed you before, the expectation is that we would bring a constant level of predictable trip by managing those lanes at 45 miles an hour through that corridor. When we were out last time in June, we got a lot of questions about traffic diversion in the corridor. Just going to show you, and we actually have a full report here available and traffic experts that can talk you through it. We also have it available online. But I just want to highlight some of the traffic diversion studies that we've seen. This is in 2017 in the HOV2 scenario compared to a no build if we did not do anything. What we would see as an increase, decrease, or no net change over the existing traffic conditions. If the arrow is blank and white, that is no significant change in the corridor. An increase is indicated by orange and a decrease by blue. You'll see where we have decreases on parallel routes such as 123 and the Dulles Connector Road, but we also see an increase in the usage of 66 between the Beltway and Falls Church. Conversely, this is the reverse commute. This is eastbound in the evening. You will see the diversion from 66 on the arterial routes. One distinction to make with this diversion is what you're not seeing in the previous slide with not a lot of change or significant change with diversion. You're seeing that here because on the peak direction, that's already happening. There are already people restricted off of the corridor. So we're bringing, through the management of these lanes, more balance to the use of the infrastructure between the Beltway and points east into DC. And you'll see that people are on the facility. There is a decrease on 66. However, the infrastructure on the parallel routes will carry the traffic. We also have done more detailed analysis to understand that there are, performance on those corridors. There is improved travel time on 66, and the performance on those arterials have no significant degradation. When it comes to operational analysis, perhaps how a signal works, we're working with local jurisdictions and running more traffic numbers to determine if there's any additional signal timing that we would have to address through any diversion as a result of this project. We also have available now what the toll rates will be. Currently along this corridor, we have the 3 tolling scenarios this evening. In 2017, if we were in the HOV2 scenario, for the peak direction commute, you're looking at $9 in the morning and $8 in the evening. Similarly, in the reverse commute, you're looking at $1 in the morning and $2 in the evening. What this represents also is what a typical trip looks like in the corridor. It's an estimated toll, it's a typical trip taken, and what the numbers that you see here are the peak of the peak hours. So these are folks that might be on the facility when it's at its highest demand, such as 8:15 in the morning. And again, I would suggest that if you're interested, please look at our report online that really gives you the specifics of what this tolling scenario is. Also, just because this public has been educated through other hot lane projects in this region, I want to also describe these numbers in comparison to other average trips that toll trips that you've seen out in the public. If we put out our numbers, such as on I-95 and 495, you see a blended number, and they'll say your typical trip blended through everyone's price would be anywhere between, $5 and $6. If we did the same for this project, I would probably tell you your typical trip could be between $4 and $5. But what we elected to do is to show you the peak of the peak trip, so you had more of a worst case scenario for this corridor. And you can see when we go to HOV3 in 2021, the prices drop from $7 in the morning to $6 in the evening, and the reverse commute averages out to $1 in each direction. How we're going to implement this project is we're going to put together an agreement through the Commonwealth of Transportation to Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And in a moment, I'm going to invite Kelly Coyner, who's the Executive Director, to walk you through that process. This project implementation will be jointly implemented by each agency. VDOT's responsibility is to manage the design, construction, maintenance, and operation of the I-66 tolls, as well as the potential future widening along this corridor. NVTC will plan and select the improvements, they'll issue grants and coordinate with the agencies to deliver these, and most importantly, they'll be monitoring the effectiveness of these improvements and reporting that back to the Commonwealth to determine the ability to move their people through the corridor. With that, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
This morning, we have a dangerous condition up here with the cords going through the machine. Good evening. As Amanda mentioned, I'm Kelly Coyner. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, which was formed in 1964 for the purpose of helping make sure we had Metro Rail and helping make sure that we have commuter rail that's known as the Virginia Rail Express. Since then, we have had a very successful run in working to fund and support transit throughout the region. This is a map of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission's transportation district. You see that it runs from Alexandria to Loudoun County, but you also see Prince William County, City of Manassas Park, and City of Manassas listed as well. And that's important for this project because all of these jurisdictions are eligible to apply for funding for projects that would benefit the corridor. It's going to be a quick overview of what our steps will be to put together the initial capital plan. We first make a call for projects that will lay out the timeline and the criteria for the projects. Somewhat later, we would ask the Commission to approve a draft plan and to initiate the public participation process to include a public hearing. Then we would adopt an initial multimodal project plan sometime in the late spring or early summer. so that we can be on the ground implementing these projects in 2017. Implementation includes making sure that the projects stay on track, monitoring to make sure that they're effective and that they're in compliance with state and federal law and the terms of the agreement. We've already talked about who's eligible to apply for this. I think what's the agreement between the Virginia Department of Transportation and MVTC will require is very important in terms of what the project eligibility will be. First and foremost, it has to increase the number of people who can move through the corridor. Secondly, it has to provide a benefit to the toll payers, and it needs to be ready to implement. You've gotten an idea by looking at the board and listening to their previous presentation about the types of projects that we might fund. The transit service, we might look at expanded commuter bus or local service or new service. Another example would be we work to help people form carpools and van pools to take advantage of Hub 2 and Hub 3. We would look at intersection improvements to help with diversions that are on the arterial roadways, and we'd also look at technologies that help passengers make their way on transit, as well as make buses move more quickly, particularly on the arterials. This is my favorite slide, because this talks about the advantages to transit by having managed lanes. Right now, as you saw a few minutes ago, peak traffic speeds can be as low as 5 miles per hour. What we transform I-66 will do is give us average speeds of 45 or more in both directions, which will lead to faster travel speeds, more reliable service, and increased service as well. A marketing study done a few years ago on I-66 asked people how frequently they were late to work traveling in the corridor. 42% reported that they were late at least once a week. What this project will afford, just by managing the flow of traffic, is an opportunity to get to work on time, pick children up for daycare on time, and to be able to count on the length of your trip. I'm going to hand this back to Renee to wrap up.
Okay. I do want to acknowledge Delegate Bob Marshall. So with that, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the widening of I-66. And as I indicated, widening is a part of the overall solution for I-66 in South Dakota. And what we will do is basically implement the multimodal solutions as well as the tolling, and then evaluate the corridor to see how it's performing. So after 5 years, because there is a ramp-up period for tolling and some of the other improvements, after 5 years, if you see that congestion still being there, then widening will commence at that time, or maybe actually in place by that time. So therefore, we're looking at a 5-year period, and then evaluation, and then if the congestion does not improve, then widening will be considered. So I know that there's been a lot of articles in the newspaper talking about widening, and we do see that, especially if these solutions do not handle the situation on 66. However, we do feel that it's important for us to look at things that can be implemented in a timely fashion and that's cost effective before we actually move into the expense of widening I-66. So here's our key milestones that we are looking at, and we are at the public meetings right now. We will be moving through the completing the traffic and revenue information and the any other studies that we're doing during the spring. We're looking at, as Kelly indicated, selecting those lists of multimodal improvements by the spring of 2016. And actually starting the construction of the toll facility in the summer of 2016. And with the start toll date summer of 2017. So please stay with us, and information can be found, these presentations will be found on our website at transform66.org, so make sure that you get informed with us and stay up with us on that information. Now, the other part of the presentation will be a Q&A. We will allow approximately 30 minutes. We will have mics on this side and right here. We do have a timer because we know that there's a lot of folks that would like to make a comment. I would ask the project team to come up so that we can answer questions. And if you can just keep your comments to a broad perspective. If there's specific things that you want to know about the study or about technical issues, we have our technical staff that will be able to assist you in that, recognizing the amount of people that may want to speak. We've limited to 2 minutes, and we will also answer questions as they come up. With that, if you line up, if you actually line up over there or either on this side.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. My concerns really have to do with tolling inside the Beltway. I have a feeling that some people right now, the way they feel about the toll roads in Dulles Road, they'll go out of the way. Some commuters will go out of the way to not use the toll road on the Dulles Tollway. So I wonder if this is not going to be the same problem in I-66. We're going to have some commuters bailing out and using Arlington Boulevard, the Highway, Washington Boulevard, Wilson Boulevard, and try to get into D.C. or into Arlington, wherever they're going. And I think the toll road, you're going ahead without the idea of widening I-66 and waiting to 5 years later. I don't think you can afford to wait 5 years later with traffic continuing to grow. I think you're going to have to consider widening 66 up front. And I think there's going to be some commuters that are going to be definitely opposed to paying $8 or $9, to go in and come back. And I think this is going to pose a real problem, and I hope you will consider my comments. Thank you very much. And I'm also a member of Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance Board. Thank you.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Anybody's going to answer?
Okay, thank you.
He said it was a comment.
May I start? Okay, thank you. Just some initial observations. If you got a family in Prince William or Western Fairfax or Loudoun that has two different work start times, the mother's going to have to pay $4,000 a year and the father's going to have to pay $4,000 a year. How many people do you think are going to move to these areas in Western Prince William, Loudoun, and Fairfax? This will seriously reduce the price of houses and the value out there. My other observation is everywhere in Northern Virginia where you have a tolled facility, such as on 495 or 95, you have somebody cut the mic on? Well, it's happened before. You have non-tolled lanes. You have no such alternative here at the present time. And when I got a letter from Secretary Lane about this, he said, looking at this, adding an additional lane inside the Beltway where you have basically an ad against it in your presentation here because of the narrowness of the bridges in Arlington, won't happen for at least 5 years, and you have to have a 3-year EIS study. He also, now it was reported in the Washington Post, so this is possibly suspect, that the reason you're doing this, and I haven't seen it in this presentation, was because there were too many scofflaws under HOV 2. Now, I've asked the state police to give me the report on that to see if that is, in fact, accurate. I've been talking to a lot of people in my district. I only found one person who didn't care about this, and that person was retired. Everybody else, from every background you can name, ethnic group, racial background, political complexion. Nobody supports this. Whatever you're doing, you haven't done a good PR job about this. And when you add that you're going to have lanes, you're going to take one general lane away from the general drivers from Haymarket to 495, you're going to basically narrow the opportunities for the general through lanes. So I don't think this has been thought through to the benefit of all the commuters involved. And I really can't support this, and I don't know of anybody in Northern Virginia, including Democrats in the Assembly, possibly with the exception of our senator friend here, and I'm not speaking for him, is in favor of this. So those are just my observations. Thank you very much.
I support the project. I think there's only so many cars you can move through this corridor, and you've got to work on moving people through it. And the only way you can do that is by increasing alternatives. I also think that there's been some comments about pedestrian and bicycle facilities being a luxury, but if you get people more connections by sidewalks, trails, bike lanes to transit, and in the areas that are becoming denser to the store, you're taking a car off the road. You're making it easier for people commuting from all parts of that corridor, including Loudon, Prince William, to get through the corridor. The only thing I would ask is whether the transit or whether the funds that would be coming from the toll revenue could be somehow coordinated with the funds from outside the Beltway, so you would be providing concrete, tangible benefits also for some transit projects that are directly serving commuters from outside the Beltway. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Jeff Parnes from the Fairfax Federation Transportation Committee. We submitted our comments earlier. First, this is not a multimodal. I heard nothing about WMATA's mass transit. I have heard no improvements for the trains. We need an improvement at the Roslyn station. We need north-south connectivity so that people going from Weston Fairfax and coming into the trains can go down to Roslyn, Crystal City without having to switch at Roslyn. Nothing has been addressed. Number two, you're talking about waiting at least 10 years for improving 66 inside the Beltway. 5 years to reevaluate it, then do your study, and then that's 10 years out. We need to move it faster. Third item, when you start tolling the traffic going westbound in the morning and eastbound in the evening, you're now moving more people onto the streets of Arlington County because they're not going to pay the money. Right now they're doing it for free. You start charging them a substantial fee, they'll drive on Arlington County's roads. And Arlington County is the people who are going to suffer more for this than the people otherwise, because now they don't have the people in the streets. They will soon enough. So that's going to be a detrimental to the people who didn't want the road widened in the first place. Fourth, you need to consider doing the widening further. And if that moves more traffic down on 110 and the Parkway to divert the traffic, all the traffic is not necessarily going across the T.R. Roosevelt Bridge. You need to give them other alternatives. We talk about alternatives to provide the people who are driving other alternatives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vince Corvinus. I'm the president of the Greenbrier Civic Association. That's the Fairfax County Parkway. And I brought this up before I came to the meeting, asked this question about my concerns right off the bat. It's admirable, the goals of the project, but the 4 hours of tolls, 8 hours a day, especially at times, to me, having traveled at 8 o'clock in the morning, even coming out of D.C. from Boston, where it's fairly light traffic mileage usually is in the 40, 45 mile an hour range. Seems a little extreme kicking off this project. Was there any thought of beginning with a 3-hour window of tolls in each direction, and then only if it didn't work that you expand it to 4 hours? And also, if there was an accident, which the speeds will increase on all lanes going into out of on 66, wouldn't that be a greater incident possibly of accidents, which we already have a huge amount of, even with the slow traffic patterns? And how would that affect rates? Like if you suddenly get on, and is usually the case, virtually every other day, there's an accident. How can you predict costs for somebody using those toll roads?
So to answer your question about the 4-hour window, we looked at traffic patterns on both the peak direction commute as well as the reverse commute. What we're seeing is, peaks and valleys, particularly in the peak direction. And I know you're talking about the reverse commute potentially going out at 8 o'clock, but in the peak direction, you're correct. There are, it's moving at 45 miles an hour because that's the restricted period. And we have the ability, we have pent-up demand before that hour and after that hour. The goal of the 4-hour period is to provide some stabilization to the traffic patterns in a larger window. Some of the adverse effects of having a 2.5-hour window right now is that we see the shorter periods before and after trickling into that restricted period and degrading that HOV restricted period as it is today. So the 4-hour period, as tested in the model, provided us the best traffic movement. In regards to looking at safety for this project, we are in the process of doing an operational analysis along this corridor, and we will be looking at if there's in trying to identify if there's any safety improvements needed to adversely that would adversely impact the flow of traffic. The benefit of the state managing this facility and incident management on this facility, there's a lot of other technologies that are available to us with the ramp metering that we're keeping in place to manage the traffic on this facility in addition to the tolling, to address if there is an incident and the ability to be tied into our operations to understand when we need to provide any tolling relief because we have congestion on the facility. So that will all be implemented as we work through the operations of the tolling system.
My name is Ron Wilcox. I'm with the Coalition for Freeways. And first of all, I think that the plan is very inequitable. It's something that the average person can't afford. And if you happen to work and you carry your stuff in your car, you can't very well hop on a bus or the metro. And the question I want to ask is, how are you dealing with parking? Because apparently, I've made a discovery that cars don't evaporate. Just because you put a toll, they have to go somewhere. You already can't park at the metros, and you're diverting traffic to the metros, meaning they're going to have to drive home, hop on a bus, and take a bus to the metro. How are you dealing with the parking situation on metro?
There are a couple of things that are eligible projects. I didn't want to give examples of each one of them. One is looking at ways that we can make it easier for people to get to and from Metro, what we refer to as the last and first mile. But park and ride facilities and parking facilities are eligible projects to help people, particularly coming in on the longer commutes in those areas. I think that we've done a lot of interesting work in looking at the impact of opening the Silver Line and what's available in parking garages, but it's one that we'll continue to look at. But parking facilities are eligible as are services to get to and from Metro.
Good evening. My name is Lance Parkinson. I'm representing myself. Regarding the peak hours, right now, I guess, let's say in the morning, it ends at 9:30. Do you see that time changing? Therefore, the tolls will still be in place. The other question is, if traffic, let's say on the weekends or on the off-peak hours, is high, do you then implement the toll at that time, or are the hours the set time of when the tolling will be in place?
Sure. The proposed 4-hour window in the morning would be from 5:30 in the morning till 9:30. So that would then, the tolls would then shut off. In the evening, it will be from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock in the evening. This project is to implement weekday peak period 4-hour tolling at those times. We are not exploring any opportunities to toll in the middle of the day, on the weekends with congestion. That's not this project.
Tom Cranmer, a civil engineer and transportation expert. I have the vaguest idea how these tolls are going to improve congestion. I think they're going to force people to go into work and arrive at work at 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and then, of course, come home very late. That's the only way I can see how the tolls would improve things. Many people don't even have easy passes, so this is a big problem. Also, you haven't discussed costs at all. I haven't any idea what your costs are. I looked at your 2012 report, and there didn't seem to be an explanation of the cost and funding for that. And where in the budget of Virginia is this money going to come from to set up all of this stuff? In addition, I don't understand how you can say that bicycles are going to improve things. Essentially, nobody uses the Fairfax County bicycle lanes. There have been no studies, to my knowledge, in Fairfax County of the impact of bicycles and improvement riding bicycles on the designated lanes. For example, in McLean, I have never seen a bicyclist in all these new lanes that they have put in. And have people walk 10 miles on this in the rain and in this hot sun in the summertime? Come on, you've got to be kidding. This is all pie in the sky stuff. And not to widen these lanes until God knows when, 20 years from now probably, is not going to improve anything. I think this is an exercise to keep people employed in VDOT. Thank you.
I do want to address the cost question that you had in your comment. The cost for this facility is a finance project through the Virginia Toll and Revenue Fund. So these are state monies that we're using to build the tolling infrastructure. Our costs are ranging somewhere between $50 and $60 million to implement this project, and that will build the actual tolling infrastructure in the initial operations and maintenance of the facility.
I'm Sherry Warren. I'm a lifelong Northern Virginia citizen. He took my question, but that was something that I was really concerned with too, is where are you getting the money to put in these toll facilities, and then you're talking about the possibility of widening the road anyway, which means they'll probably have to be torn down or rebuilt or, massaged into wider lanes. I just have to agree with most of the folks that have spoken here that this seems like an exercise in futility. I know for a fact that I wouldn't drive on that road as a toll. I would jump on something else just because I could move faster. I do it right now, and there are no tolls. When 66 is backed up out here where I live, I get very upset about how much traffic there is, too, in the middle of the day. So I know how to jump off on lots of other avenues to get into, especially Arlington, and cross the bridge into D.C. if I need to. So I don't believe that you're giving the citizens out here the credit to know to do that, to save themselves some money. It's going to be awfully expensive. It costs enough for gas as it is now, and now you want them to pay a toll. Outrageous amount. Thank you.
Good evening. George Pope, a citizen of Northern Virginia since the highway was first built, Arlington on out. For about 12 years, I used a slug line coming in from Springfield, and I know that it works. Yes, you have parking aspects here, but under present circumstances, I don't think, even though you might go through a metro bus area, that you can permit people to park there and to use it effectively if we were to try to go that alternate. Over the past 14 years, I traversed from western Prince William County. When we started coming into Arlington around the 4-mile run, we figured maybe 55 minutes. Anyone getting in a car right now, and I don't care what time of the day for the most part, you have to plan an hour and a half to almost 2 hours, either east or west. We know there's congestion, but we're not Europe. The main concern I have right now, too, is the factor that you're going to have bailout. You know, different couples work different hours. People have jobs that they just can't be like Europe, get on a bike or get on a transit type of arrangement. Now, the key thing I think of concern, and I haven't heard anything about today, is projecting all the population's growth for Loudoun, Prince William, and Fairfax, and the impact it's going to have on even your outer zone and the push in. I know there's been about 30% growth in western Prince William County alone. Now, one last thing I'd like to leave, and I have grave concern. Highway Trust was started up to begin with to pay for these roads. We know it isn't a reality. We know we have to go forward. But for many, many years, the Commonwealth of Virginia got a heck of a lot more money out of Northern Virginia for roads, which we never saw. That's number one. And the last thing I'm going to throw out, you're conveying that the tolls are going to create revenues to help fund improvements into the future. From my perspective right now, it's a farce. You haven't projected total cost to us. And how are you going to know you're going to be able to carry out even the widening you're talking about? Yep. The last step, I'm going to say right now, between about 1,980 cars per mile when they're in a lane is when your congestion begins. Montgomery County went through it with the widening of 270 about 15 years ago. They added all those lanes. They still have congestion. So I think we have to do some aspects of our segues and how we exit and how we can best utilize all the mix that you have. But a lot more has to be addressed than what has been tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to know how VDOT's preferred alternative here results in a slowing of global warming, climate change. To me, it seems like it does the opposite. It's a alternative that's heavily reliant on fossil fuels and doesn't make adequate investment in our public transportation system. I would appreciate it if you could comment. Thank you.
I do want to acknowledge that this project has been modeled in the region's air conformity analysis that's actually out for public comment currently and is moving forward. So we have looked at the air quality conformity, including this project in the regional transportation plan.
I'm Rob Whitfield with the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance. I've been to over 3,000 transportation and land use meetings in the last decade, including more than 3 dozen at the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission and 2 dozen at the Transportation Planning Board of the Council of Governments in D.C. Folks, you're being sold something that isn't going to help because they aren't even doing an environmental analysis of what it would take to build the third lane eastbound. What you're being given, how many people are from outside the Beltway here in this room? Most of you? How many of you outside the Beltway would use a bike in Arlington County to get to Washington, D.C.? 1, 2. Bottom line is, this is a project to benefit Arlington County, which of course didn't contribute anything to the $6 billion cost of the Silver Line. It's basically the inside the Beltway crowd pulling money from outside the Beltway. The NVTC has existed for 50 years. Have they ever done one highway project or supported one highway project in 50 years? I doubt it. Kelly's only been there 2 years, so she doesn't have the blame for what happened in the previous 48 years. But the bottom line is, in the June meeting, they said they already had over 200 projects selected by a management advisory committee, which was never identified to the public of who these people are and what their policies and priorities are. The bottom line is, these people think that you're suckers for the amount of money only being talked about here is only about $10 million a year. which is not enough to do anything significant. And so this project is so fundamentally flawed that I hope the General Assembly will take actions to prevent its implementation, and we need to go back to the drawing board. So there's going to be a meeting on October 22 that Prince William County Chairman Corey Stewart is holding. I don't have the details tonight.
Thank you. I'm Senator Dave Larson. I have a quick comment and then a question for Kelly. One of the tenets we've tried to hold to in the legislature and in the planning process is that when we toll a road, there need to be alternatives to that tolling facility, that road that's being tolled. And one of the concerns I think we have is we don't know yet what the improvements would be to Route 50, to Route 29, to these alternative roads. As this thing still as to whether that would be, a bailout that would work. So we don't have that information yet, and I think that's something that people are going to need to hear, because usually, like I say, unless we add infrastructure or have alternatives, we don't like to toll, and I think there's some real concern here on the cost of this and tolling inside the Beltway. The question I had for Kelly is that there is a planned VRE station in Gainesville that's due to open, I think, in about 2 years.
No, more like 6 to 10 years.
The VRE station in Gainesville is still that far off. Last I heard, it was just several years away. Has that been pushed back?
No. We're in preliminary design and doing the NEPA work at the moment.
Do you have any idea at that time, because some of that will coincide with the 5-year plan for making a decision on a toll or an additional lane inside the Beltway? Do you have any idea as to how much relief that might provide the 66 corridors, or is that too early to tell?
It is clearly part of the outside the Beltway sort of feeder component of it. It will be about 2,700 trips a day, and so that's sort of what you'd be talking about there.
So we're not sure at this point in time how much that would impact traffic inside the Beltway.
Well, we don't know how much it would impact it inside the Beltway.
Okay, thank you.
How you doing? My name is Rob. I'm a small business owner in Fairfax. Looking at this, I'm on 66 and I drive through North Virginia. I probably hit 66 to and from all hours of the day, starting at 8 in the morning until about 8 at night. So just that $17 a day is $4,600. That's not counting the dollar here and there. The only way I see this alleviating traffic is you're forcing people off of it. And according to this traffic analysis, the study confirms that the parallel roads have the capacity to handle these predicted increases in traffic. And whoever wrote that or whoever did that has never had to drive from Fairfax all the way to Arlington. It's ridiculous. So this is almost, I don't know, highway robbery, terrorism. You're forcing all of these people off. And someone's getting rich off of it, because automatically you're telling me you have a 5-year plan to start something new, to widen it. And you're already telling me that's going to cost $60 million to put the toll booths in. So you're looking at $10 million a year, so you're going to pay for itself, which doesn't make any sense to me. So this is, to me, is a get-rich-quick scheme, because you're forcing everyone to pay your toll. I mean, it's the mob. It literally is the mob. You're forcing everyone to pay the toll or go on 50, 29, and then you're going to have to widen those, all of those businesses over there, all the school buses that have to stop. Not one mention is saying, hey, we're buying 100 new MRE buses, or whatever the name of those buses are. None of that. So you're forcing people to pay this, and whoever's in charge of this, making $10 to $20 million a year, I want that business. Because there's no way it's done in 5 years. Because if it is done in 5 years, I make my $100 million and go, here, Virginia, you can widen your project now. You can widen the roads now. It's ridiculous. You already have your out. So why even start doing this now?
Hi, I'm Katrina Sarlin, and I'm on the board of Townsend Moorfield Community Association in Vienna, Virginia. I'm really concerned that your study is 2 years old already, and we're just starting to implement. You really need to think about the impact on the families and extend it to other states. There are people that come from West Virginia, Pennsylvania, as well as Maryland, and come in and commute into the district. When I see the arrows going back and forth, I see how the dollars, just like someone else said, the dollars are coming out of people's pockets who don't live here. And they're going to commute right on straight through and pay for it. So please consider the inbound, and especially the reverse commute on your study. Because we're already seeing in the morning that the traffic jam is outbound on 66 inside Beltway from Sycamore Street. So extended counties. Also, I-66 does not end at a stoplight in the District of Columbia. There are exit ramps, one that goes to I-10 on the right, one that goes off to Canal, different places, one that goes to East Street Express. So there's only a small percentage, I believe, that goes on to Constitution. But thank you so much for hearing my comments.
Hi, I'm Julie Herka. I'm from that area of Dunloring where the inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway meet. This is being split into two projects when really it should be one comprehensive plan. It's just inconsistent to split it twice. So the tolls are double if you go outside the Beltway, not just what's posted here. Outside the Beltway is going to be a private partner, a P3. And that the VDOT held the public comment period about whether it would be a private partner down in Richmond at 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon with 2 days notice tells me that that's going to happen, transurban. So outside the Beltway we get 25 miles of toll lanes, a lot more than the prices they're adding here. They're taking away a lane, so the general public is going to be jammed, and it's 24 hours a day. Weekends, it'll be jammed. So inside the Beltway, you've got 5 years to see if the tolls will work. Well, I drive on 495 and I drive on 95, and Transurban's lanes aren't working. They're jammed. Okay, so outside the Beltway, we're not getting that, and we're getting the $2 or $3 billion widening project. So I just think this whole thing should be rethought. Give us 5 years to see if the toll works outside the Beltway before you sign a 50 to 75-year contract with Transurban. Thanks.
Manager address the procurement part.
Yeah, just quickly on the outside the Beltway procurement, the announcement that was made at the CTB meeting, which happened to be in Bristol, was also followed up with a event here in the district where the secretary came up to also brief local elected officials. But the announcement was that we were considering 3 different options. They include the private procurement, where it would be a traditional, what we call public-private partnership, similar to what we have on 95 and 495. The other 2 options that are also still being considered, one is a design-build with operate-maintain, and then a design-build with alternative technical concepts. So all 3 are on the table. We just had a request for qualifications submission that came in on October 1st. And we do have competition in all 3 of those elements, and we're considering all 3. There'll be a second part of that that we'll look at with some more financial information with a decision later in December. So all of those are on the table still.
Wait and see which comes out. And then it'll be Transurban inside the Beltway.
All right, we have 2 more, and then we're going to close out.
I want to say thank you for hosting this tonight and giving us an opportunity to ask questions and learn about what the plan is. I'm Jennifer Boysko. I'm actually a candidate for the House of Delegates in the 86th District. I live in Herndon. Those of us who live along the toll road already have to pay to leave town, basically. The idea of our working families having to pay an additional, what could be $17 a day when they have an unflexible time for travel, I think there's a lot of heartburn going on in the community. I've heard a lot from when I go out door to door to speak to people. The second question I have is, we know that Dulles Airport has been named as one of the top economic priorities for Virginia, to keep Virginia moving and to make Dulles Airport a success. When we're going to be tolling people who are going to be traveling, that I think is going to have an impact, and that concerns me as well. So have you all had discussions about what that impact will be on the airport? Thank you.
We have coordinated with the airport to have a better understanding of what traffic actually uses the corridor during the rush hour period. Right now, the way what we perceive putting in a reliable transportation network is to provide the ability for people to be able to make a choice. $2 during the peak periods, knowing that they have a reliable trip and not having to give themselves an hour and a half or 2 hours advance time to make sure that they can catch a flight that could cost them $500. So we definitely are sensitive to the economic viability of the airport, but we also want to make it reliable for people to access that airport during our peak tolling periods as well.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to speak again. That was my clone about the first time. What I find especially distressing is the fact that this project is going to be managed and run by the NVTC, which is outside the scope of the law that the General Assembly passed to require assessments for congestion reduction and prioritization for all the projects you pick. Why did you all pick the only entity in Northern Virginia that isn't subject to this requirement? That is highly suspect in my mind. And what is secondly disturbing is you've got a group here, this probably reflects the Northern Virginia community of people who could come here, overwhelmingly against this at this point for different reasons. But is it just that everybody gets to vent and you're going to proceed ahead with this regardless? So, I mean, this does not seem to be accountability that we need in government. And thirdly, based on my responses going door to door, I'm in a moral quandary. I don't know how to thank Governor McAuliffe enough for basically, he's given me an in-kind contribution for my reelection. He's making so many people mad by pushing this. I mean, you really are going to find out what happens when the elections come up. And here, this young lady here, she's a Democrat, has a problem with this. I'm a Republican. I have a problem with this. Why do we have a problem? Because our people have a problem with this approach. So this really needs to be thought out again, and the accountability has to be restored to this project. Thank you.
That ends our question and comment period. We do have experts filled out. Do you have any specific questions? Thank you for attending. The comments